I know whenever I speak about housing, it is against the backdrop of Hurricane Mellisa. Yes, there are still thousands of Jamaicans who are without proper shelter. They may have their four walls around them, but they don't have a complete roof on top of those walls. But it is the point. Can you hear me now? I mean, I could have gone ahead with the mic. Yes. Now, whenever I'm at a platform speaking about housing, I have to do this with the sensitivity in mind that there are still thousands of Jamaican families who are without proper shelter at this time. But the launch of Chester Creek takes place against a backdrop not so much of the destruction of Hurricane Mellisa, but more so against the backdrop of a phenomenal recovery from Hurricane Mellisa. And I'm pleased to report that this recovery has outpaced expectations. Indeed, outpaced the recovery of our peers who have been hit by similar hurricanes. For electricity, I can say that we are 98% restored, 98% recovered. For water, we are at 97% restored. Agricultural output has rebounded more quickly than anticipated. And perhaps most encouraging, inflation has come in below what we had anticipated. This has enabled the Bank of Jamaica to reduce its policy interest rate to 5.5% in February 2026, which is a huge deal. We are at a position where we can officially close the recovery period. You will recall that at the end of January, we closed what was considered the relief phase of the disaster response. So the cabinet received a report yesterday on the electricity sector and on the water sector. And so I am announcing officially that the government will be closing the recovery phase of the response. And all it means is that the government's emphasis will now shift to another phase of the response. And that phase is the reconstruction phase. Mind you, all three phases were operating simultaneously. But where the government placed its emphasis would be in the initial weeks after the disaster. It would have been on getting relief supplies, humanitarian supplies out to displaced families. Then after we have closed that, then the effort would be on getting the electricity grid up, the water grid up, students back to school, hospitals operating. That's the recovery phase. And so we can say we have successfully closed that phase, and now we are moving into the reconstruction phase. There is one element of the response which straddles both phases, and that is housing. So clearly, the restoration of roofs will continue into the reconstruction phase. And that is because we are still distributing the grants, the roofs grants, which are having an impact on the housing and roofing and shelter situation. And I'm told that over $500 million of grants have been dispersed nationally. Now that's a huge sum, but it is still not sufficient to treat with the entirety of the problem. I want to use the opportunity to remind those persons who are beneficiaries of the grant to use the grant for the purpose for which it was given. Grants range from 500,000 Jamaican dollars for persons who have severe damage, to 200,000 persons who have moderate damage, and 75,000 for persons with minor damage. We recognize that in the aftermath of the hurricane, you don't only need to restore your roof. You might need to replace a bed. You might need to replace a stove. You might need to buy a uniform for your kids. And so what we have said is that of the grant amount that is given, you can use up to 75,000 for these general purposes, except for other things like, you can't use this to go to the bar or party or, beauty supplies or these kinds of, no. Use it for the things that are important to your recovery. The remainder of what is left should be used exclusively for the restoration of your roof. I have asked MOCA and I have tasked the Ministry of Labour and Social Security to do audits of persons who have received the grants to ensure that what they have got the grant for is what they have used it for. This is why we took the time to do an assessment of damage. So assessors were out in the field. They would have taken pictures of the houses. They would have interviewed the beneficiaries before. Don't worry, legislation is coming. You know, there is such a thing as noise pollution. And many persons, many communities suffer in silence. So legislation is coming. But to return to my original point, I have asked MOCA and the Ministry of Labour and Social Security to put in place audit teams to check that there is no fraud, no welfare fraud in the use of these grants. And it is very important, because if you took the grant and used it for other purposes other than for which it was given, then you didn't need the grant in the first place. We could have given that to someone who actually needed it. So we took the time to do the assessments. Persons physically went and viewed the houses, viewed the damage, took pictures of it, interviewed the beneficiaries. And therefore there is a record, a basis on which we can check and compare. So if you receive the grant and then we come and check and nothing has been done to the roof, then that's cause for action. So I encourage everyone who is receiving the grants to use the grants for the purpose that they are given. It is a lot of money that the government has taken from the budget. It is your taxpayers' dollars, and I'm certain you are vested in ensuring that the funds are not wasted. And then there is a huge hue and cry to say, we didn't get anything, or what we get, we had to use it for something else, so we need to make another allocation again. That will not happen, because that will throw the country into economic chaos. And that is why we are imploring, urging, encouraging persons who have received the grants to use them for the purpose of recovery. And I should also say, as a sign of how the recovery is going smoothly in most instances, the Bank of Jamaica has also revised its projection for full economic recovery downwards from, I believe it was 3 to 4 years. Now they are saying we can recover within 2 to 3 years. So that shows you how the recovery has been managed. And we hope that the reduction in interest rates will translate into lower rates in the actual retail commercial banking system. I see representatives of banks here, and I want to encourage them to pass